Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Now, you might not know this about me, but I am a big fan of My Hero Academia. It's honestly one of my favorite anime. It's crazy to think that it's been 10 years since the manga began, and now it's over. The manga recently reached its conclusion, and the anime announced the final season releasing in 2025. Like many shonen anime, My Hero Academia is no stranger to having feature films. What stands them out from other anime films, though, is that they actively try to make it part of the series canon without taking away from the series proper. With the fourth and potentially final movie coming out recently, I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about the My Hero Academia movies, revisiting the first two and giving my fresh thoughts on the third and fourth films. Obvious spoilers for the movies and the series as a whole, since I'll be discussing manga spoilers here. That being said, let's start with My Hero Academia: Two Heroes. The first movie takes place between seasons 2 and 3, after the final exams and before the training camp arc. Deku, All Might, and a handful of his classmates start their summer vacation off at Island, where a big science expo is being held showing off new technology. We get some cool All Might lore and learn about his time in the United States, meeting his best friend David Shield and his daughter Melissa. However, villains take over the island and hold everyone hostage, including the heroes. So it's up to Deku, Melissa, and some Class A students to reach the top of the skyscraper to shut the villains down. For a first movie, it's a pretty simple premise, yet grand enough for where the manga was at the time. It's one of the first times that a majority of the class gets to do things on their own, and realistically, I think that's what the appeal of these movies are story-wise. They're chances for the kids to take the lead, and stories like that are always pretty cool. David and Melissa are good original characters, and I especially love Melissa's dynamic with the cast and her relevance to the story going forward. She's similar to Deku in that she doesn't have a quirk, but she's choosing to be a hero in her own way by creating technology to advance hero society. The final battle is spectacular, with it being the only time Deku and All Might fight side by side together. This movie is good for a first outing, but that also is probably one of the biggest flaws with it. You can definitely tell that this is their first time making a movie. The overall quality of the film is barely a step up from the show, and at some points it just makes me think, wow, I would have hated to see this on a big screen. It's honestly more akin to a TV special rather than a big theatrical release, and it just reeks of it throughout the entire thing. There are also some things about the movie that just tell you that there's no stakes involved, like the mid-gauntlets, which are specifically designed for Deku to throw 3 punches at 100% without breaking his body, when this is at the point in the show where Deku could barely throw a punch past 10%. And while I love it when the rest of the class get to be featured in the story, their inclusion here is hilariously not organic. It almost feels like a sitcom with how many times the movie goes, "What? We're also all on the island at the same time? Plus Ultra!" or some shit. Plus, the rest of the class is also here too? Not just the 10 or so the movie focuses on, but the others? This is before the series wanted to push the class as a singular unit, so these are more like fun little cameos. But it's strange enough that it's kind of bothersome. They give reasons for why the main characters in the movie are here. Ida and Momo are rich, and Uraraka and Jiro are her plus ones. Bakugo won the sports festival and Kirishima's his plus one. Shoto's the son of Japan's number 2 hero. Kaminari and Mineta are working part-time jobs on an island by the US. You see what I mean when I say this is dumb? But nonetheless, there's a reason for everyone to be here. So why are these motherfuckers here? We are not in Japan. This is the United States. You mean to tell me that everyone just decided to come to this expo on the same day? Whatever, man. Also, while the last fight is cool, the villains, bro, I don't even know their names. Did they even say their names? And just like the rest of the class being here feeling like a sitcom-esque coincidence, All for One being the one pulling the strings just feels like, it was me all along. This will make this villain feel like a threat. Like, bro, no! Overall, as a first movie, it could be better. Definitely. But it could also be worse. It's a good outing, especially for early My Hero, but it does have glaring flaws. Something good, though, is that from here on out, the rest of the movies are going to be bigger and better. Like with our second film, My Hero Academia Heroes Rising. The second My Hero movie is a huge improvement from the first. Shit, I remember seeing this movie in the theaters. I saw it in 4DX, so all those action scenes were just a roller coaster. It was awesome. And then like a week later, the world shut down because of the plague. Crazy times. With Heroes Rising, you can tell the anime staff learned their lessons when it comes to making a movie. This movie is absolutely gorgeous compared to the first, and they take the premise of the kids doing it on their own to the next level. The movie follows the entirety of Class A, not just 10 of them, opening a hero agency on an isolated island as part of a school project thing. This island they're on, by the way, that's just the OG Fortnite map. However, villains invade the island and want to steal a boy named Katsuma's quirk, and so it's up to Class A to protect him and his sister Mahiro and defeat the villains. Like the first movie, this movie focuses on empowering the class and having them have to save the day on their own. But the catch here is that they are completely on their own, on an isolated island. All Might isn't here to save them this time. They have to do it themselves. What I love about this movie is that the entire class is here, and they all get at least one moment to shine. Even characters who get little screen time like Hagakure, Koda, and Sato all at least get something. It's a vast improvement over the first, where it feels like they just pulled random names out of a hat, and they're here organically as well. The core of this movie, however, are absolutely Deku and Bakugo, and it focuses on their different definitions of being a hero, being saving people and winning in a fight. It all culminates in them working together willingly for the first time, showing that if they do combine their strength, that they would be unstoppable and they would be the best heroes. As for the movie original characters, Katsuma and Mahiro are pretty okay. I like that both siblings look up to either Deku or Bakugo respectively, and I love this conversation Deku has with Katsuma early on in the movie about what it means to be a hero. He puts him and Bakugo's viewpoint into perspective here, and I think that's really neat. However, I do think as characters, Melissa has the edge here. In Two Heroes, she really felt like a fleshed out character compared to the kids here, where they feel more like MacGuffins, really. The villains are a step up from the first movie. I actually know the main guy's name at least, so there's that. While it's clear that the main villain, 9, is a knockoff who was only there so Deku and Bakugo could fight an all-for-one type villain, he's at least more interesting than whoever that other guy was. And his powers are crazy, especially his weather-based attacks. Character-wise, I think his crew are a little more interesting, especially the Chimera guy. He's cool, and his mob boss look and demeanor is entertaining as hell. Additionally, I do appreciate that the movie tries to tie them to the League of Villains. They really want to sell that, yes, this can be part of the canon. Going back to the looks of this movie, holy hell, this movie is gorgeous. This feels like a movie compared to that TV special ass Two Heroes. The background art is stunning and ditches the comic pop art style in favor of traditional background paintings. This is something they do in all the movies going forward, and they really push it in the future. The action is also stellar in this movie, especially towards the end when the class start trying to slow down 9. And when Deku and Bakugo start boxing him by themselves, it gets crazy. With these first few movies, you can tell that they wanted to do something that wouldn't ever happen in the series to make them feel big and special. With Two Heroes, we had Deku and All Might fighting side by side, and with Heroes Rising, we have Deku transferring One For All to Bakugo and having a double One For All fight scene. This final sequence has lived in my head rent-free for the past 4 years now. This right here I feel is the peak of the show, at least action-wise. It really makes it feel like, holy shit, this is it. Especially considering Horikoshi, the author of the manga, stated that the events in this movie were what he was originally considering for the series finale, but decided to go a different route. Emotions are high as Deku won't be able to live his dream anymore, and the music, the animation, the choreography, the acting, everything is at 100 in these final moments. And then it makes you remember that this is a movie and we need to get back to the status quo. One of my only gripes with this movie would have to be the ending, and it's unfortunately a big gripe. Double One For All with Deku and Bakugo is the coolest shit ever, but the way they reverse it is just dumb. And it also happens in like 2 minutes. I'm quoting All Might here, alright? Bakugo was actually knocked out before the transfer finished. Except actually no, One For All decided to stay with young Midoriya because he has the heart of a true hero. And it turns out Bakugo got amnesia, so he doesn't remember anything that happened in the last moments of the fight. Go beyond! Whatever, man. Shit. So dumb. Like, yes, it has to return to the status quo by the end of it because the movies can't influence the show in any way, but come on, it's just kind of insulting to do it this way. You could have at least had Bakugo come up to Deku at the end of the movie and have him eat his hair or some shit. Like, have Bakugo willingly give it back and remember. That'd be some cool character growth. But then again, this was at the time in the anime where they were making him into a one-dimensional rage lord, so fucking whatever. Also, timeline-wise, this is like the least canon movie. Yes, it is canon, but where it takes place is really weird, man. See, this takes place like after the joint training with Class B in season 5, but before the Endeavor Agency arc. So there's like a 1-episode window where it could feasibly take place. The problem is that this movie released when season 4 had just started airing. Yeah, they were really bold releasing this movie when it was way ahead of the anime timeline-wise. Like, Hawks wasn't even a thing in the show at that point, yet he's pretty pivotal in this movie. Also, shout out Zeno Robinson, you're my goat. So they're not allowed to do anything with Deku power-wise past season 4, meaning he's not allowed to have Black Whip or anything, so it's really strange. But that's just nerd shit, so who cares? Overall, Heroes Rising, huge step up from the first movie. It has big action, very pretty visuals, and a great usage of the whole class. Out of all the movies we're going to talk about today, this one is the best in terms of balancing out Class A and utilizing them. It's the first time the movies felt like a step up from the show, and if you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend you give it a watch. Next in the series is My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission. Taking place between seasons 5 and 6, World Heroes Mission sees the heroes of Japan going on a global mission to stop Humorize, an evil cult from wiping out the entire quirk population, which is roughly 80% of the world. Bombs are placed in major countries, so different teams are tasked with finding them and neutralizing them before they go off. Meanwhile, Deku and a crook named Rhodey get too close to the truth of Humorize and are framed for first-degree murder. This is the funniest fucking frame ever, and have to go on the run. This movie is way different than the other My Hero movies. While those films like to focus on the class as a unit, World Heroes Mission truly only focuses on Deku and this new character Rhodey, and it works really well. Aside from Bakugo and Todoroki, the rest of the class who are fighting really only get like 10 seconds of screen time. And even with Bakugo and Todoroki, they get very little focus compared to Deku and Rhodey. They disappear for basically all of Act 2, and for the final fight, they get these nameless villains to fight that the movie just likes to cut to every now and then for a few seconds. Like, it's weird. For a good chunk of the film, it's a road trip movie with these stunning backgrounds and a beautiful montage showcasing it. You really get to feel Deku and Rhodey bonding, and you get to see them become friends and overcome struggles with each other. Nothing about their relationship is instant, and there are still setbacks, like when Rhodey tries to give the briefcase they're carrying to the villain so he can go home. It's a nice change of pace compared to Melissa or the kids, where they were buddy-buddy from the start. It's no secret that Rhodey is the most popular character from the movies, and it's very easy to see why. He's the most developed and stands out among the rest of them. He's also the only one to ever crack the top 10 on the character poll that the manga used to do every year. And even in the big poll the series did to celebrate the conclusion, he's consistently in the top 20 out of every character in the manga. Rhodey's arc in this movie is really great, and the twist with his quirk being a reflection of his true feelings is pretty clever. A crook who is incapable of lying is a cool concept, and that damn bird tearing up at the end when they say goodbye to Deku gags me every time. I can't believe this boy had 2 summer flings, I swear. I think in terms of pure visuals and character animation, this movie is definitely the best. This movie shines with character acting and backgrounds, and it truly feels like a grade above the show's quality. The villain Fleck Turn is a unique concept compared to 9, who was a shallow imitation of All for One. Him being a physical representation of the quirk doomsday theory, a concept the show touched on every now and then up to this point, is really interesting. His design? Well, he does not have that shit on, but he's still an alright concept for the big bad. Despite being so different from the rest of the movies in the series, it still somehow comes full circle with the kids save the day concept that they always like to go back to. Even though the class isn't present as a unit, it still falls to Deku, Bakugo, Todoroki, and Rhodey to save the day. I think overall out of all the movies, this one is the most consistent. The entire class not being here actually might be a plus for this movie, as there are less characters to juggle and more focus on Deku Deku and Rhodey's relationship, which is clearly the soul of the movie. I actually can't think of any weird plot holes or cop-out endings like Two Heroes or Heroes Rising. There are a few jarring action shots, and while the key to beating the villain at the end ends up just being punch him really hard, it's still one of the cooler fights choreography and animation wise. I don't think it lives up to the final 9 fight from the last movie, but it's still very, very good action. Great movie at the end of the day, with a very sweet ending. And now, we're at the most recent film, being You're Next. Finally, a movie without hero in the fucking title. To a non-fan, these film titles must be really confusing. It was actually quite surprising when this got announced. For context, the manga was confirmed to be ending this year, and the anime finally started adapting the final war arc. At this point, we haven't had a movie in 3 years, and there wasn't really a place they could put it in the story, but against all odds, we got another one. Your Next perhaps has the strangest premise, with the villain of the movie being an imposter All Might. Sorry, Dark Might, ooh. So, Dark Might kidnapped this girl named Anna whose quirk amplifies other quirks, aka makes them strong, and he has built an empire. He plans to become the next symbol of peace by any means necessary, completely contradicting the real All Might and Deku's ideals by endangering civilians. Meanwhile, Anna's butler, Giulio, is on a mission to kill her, since the more she uses her quirk, the more uncontrollable it becomes. Like Heroes Rising, Your Next features the entire class, minus Aoyama since he's in timeout, as a collective unit, as well as some other key names like Mirio and Endeavor. However, unlike Heroes Rising, the movie does not balance them well, like, at all. We spend half the movie separated into 3 big groups with some of the most random dynamics I've ever seen in the show. Ah, yes, my favorite team-ups, Bakugo, Kirishima, Koda, and Sugar Rush Guy. More of that, please. We don't really group back up until the last act, and once we do, the class just becomes one singular unit aside from Deku, Bakugo, Todoroki, and Tokoyami. Oh my gosh, what a surprise. Heroes Rising gave almost every classmate an individual moment to shine, and overall balanced the cast very well. Your Next does not. Two Heroes at least had the sensibility to only include roughly half the class, and World Heroes Mission was smart to make it just about 5 characters. Your Next tries to bring the whole class into the action like the second movie did, but fails in this department by not letting any of the characters shine and not giving them much of anything to do. Rather than individual characters doing things, it's groups doing things, which just isn't as interesting. In fact, the whole movie feels like an imitation. It imitates Heroes Rising with the entire class being there, and you can definitely tell that they were trying to imitate Rhodey with Giulio. He's a red-headed stark contrast from Deku, who doesn't get along with him at first, but by the end they're friends. Except, unlike Rhodey, he doesn't get fleshed out at all, and he makes me feel nothing. And even the villain is just an imitation of All Might. I know that's the point, but look at the other movie's villains. You have Flecked Turn, a unique villain with his own goals and powers. Nine, who may have just been an all-for-one stand-in, but still had his own goals and agendas and personality. Whoever the first movie's villain was, even he had his own thing going on. And here we have All Might, down to the voice actor. It's an in-your-face statement saying, this is how the kids would fare against Prime All Might. The concept is just dumb. The story also hardcore drags in the second act. Like, it's kind of boring, and there's barely any action going on. However, when the action does go on, it is so good. The character acting isn't as good as World Heroes Mission, but the action animation is honestly on par with the final fight with 9 in like every fight scene. The final fight with Dark Might especially goes insanely hard. However, there are once again some character cop-outs I don't really care for. Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki are once again the focus for the movie, but just like the previous, Bakugo and Todoroki are pretty absent in the second act, and for the final battle they just fight these nameless villains until they're needed in the actual final battle. But hey, at least they get to show up, unlike World Heroes Mission. But something unforgivable, they edge us with having Tokoyami be there with them. There's a scene before the end where Bakugo's giving orders to everyone, and it basically boils down to, Todoroki, Deku, and Tokoyami, come with me to fight the bad guy. Everyone else go kill yourself! Which is insane because this is the first time they really acknowledge that yes, this bird is up there with them as the strongest in the class, and he deserves as much fights as them. But literally not even 5 seconds after he says this, Tokoyami is left left behind to fight a horde of henchmen. That made me so upset. Also, in a movie where the main villain is an imposter All Might, the fact that the real All Might never meets him face to face is insane to me. They have a video chat early on in the movie that showcases their clashing of ideals, but we don't ever get a payoff for this where they meet face to face. This movie also just pushes the canon the most out of any of these movies, even the second one. Okay, so the first movie takes place between seasons 2 and 3. The second takes place between joint training and Christmas, and while it's a little iffy here, it at least still has a place for it. The third movie takes place between seasons 5 and 6. They all have points where they can go in the canon. Makes sense, right? But this movie? It takes place between these two panels, in this little gap right here, these two panels. The movie hardcore wants it to take place here too, because the after credits scene is literally Shigaraki waking up and All For One getting ready to start the game. Shit is crazy, man. Overall, while the movie had great moments, it is not without its flaws. It drags for way too long, the characters barely get anything to do, and the movie characters, hell, the concept itself, leaves more to be desired. But when the action gets good, it gets good. The legacy these movies left behind on the series is astounding though. I already mentioned that all 4 of these movies are canon, but movie original characters have popped up in the manga. 9 is among the characters shown when Shigaraki declares that he wants to destroy everything. Melissa supplies Deku with new gear whenever he goes solo, like that's just straight up the fucking gauntlets from the first movie. She also is directly acknowledged multiple times in the final war by All Might, and the rest of the movie characters are also sprinkled in the final war everywhere. Julio and Ano were even added in for the anime since the movie came out after the manga ended. That being said, the question still remains. How would I rank these movies? Well, there's a bunch of different factors I have. In terms of visuals, I would go 3, 4, 2, 1. In terms of action, I would go 2, 4, 3, 1. In terms of movie original characters, I would go 3, 1, 2, 4. In terms of stories, I would go 3, 2, 1, 4. But overall, I would probably say 3, 2, 1, 4. But my personal favorite is still Heroes Rising. World Heroes Mission is objectively the better movie, but it's whatever, who cares? Now, what's the future for My Hero Academia movies? Well, with the series wrapped up in the manga and the anime entering its final season, should we even get another movie? I'd say yes. I do at least want one more movie. It was a surprise that we even got Your Next, but since they're open to doing more movies this close to the finish line, I would love another film showcasing Deku's final moments with One For All. He loses it at the end of the manga and we're shown a big time skip, and that he still had his quirk throughout high school. I want a movie showing his final fight and how he ended up losing it, just to tie up any loose ends. A lot of people want a movie showing the class as adults in action, and I wouldn't mind that too, but I think I prefer my initial idea to that. What do you think about the My Hero Academia movies? Do you enjoy them? Do you think we should have another one? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, that's gonna be it for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, take care.